My name's Rosa and this is James and we're at Noth farm in rural Aberdeenshire.
Noth farm is an 8-acre permaculture designed small farm. We run a small ecologically designed market garden producing vegetables for a weekly veg box scheme. We are registered as a CSA, Community Supported Agriculture Scheme. We've been focusing a lot on agroforestry systems for wood fuel and the biodiversity that trees bring to a site. Most recently we've set up a new enterprise called Tap Retreat, which is an off-grid shepherd's hut where we're hoping to welcome people to come and stay on the farm, create their own retreat and get to see what it's like living and working on a small permaculture farm. So in the market garden we have a few rows of trees which we refer to as the forest garden tree rows or linear forest gardens, and it was important for me with regards to design in the early days of the market garden to make sure that we had that injection of perennials throughout the annual system. For dividing up the plots, we knew obviously it would act as wildlife corridors throughout the garden, real areas for the biodiversity and animal populations. We wanted to have fruit available for our CSA veg boxes. The annual vegetables always take up a lot of time, no matter how clever we can be with our planting techniques or reducing weeding through no dig. Annual vegetable production is a lot of work, and we wanted to put some systems into place in that garden that over time will manage themselves to an extent. Another positive aspect of integrating trees into the annual market garden was to create a beneficial microclimate. We've got some very strong winds. We're on a sloping site here, 270 metres above sea level on the side of a hill. So it was very important to be able to put some windbreaks into place. Because we know the vegetables need that wind protection. We know that the fruit trees themselves needed wind protection. So any windbreaks that we put in were there not only to break the wind, but also to be a yield in itself. So we were putting hardy fruiting species in as hedges. So we've been planting crab apples and damson, sea buckthorn, roses. That means that we're getting many functions from that one hedge. So far we've been mostly focusing on fruiting perennial shrubs and trees within the market garden, but I think there's definitely scope for looking into perennial veg.
With perennial vegetables, there's quite a nice complement if you've got a combination between annual and perennial. There's obviously the perennial vegetables will have their own needs and things, but it potentially, for example, in a difficult season, your perennial vegetables are much more likely to be able to hold up against that than your annual ones that you're really just starting off every year. So you've got this kind of sometimes a bit of a security that comes from having a combination of perennial trees and perennial vegetable crops as well as your annuals. It can be like a backup for both of them to help each other in that way. When things aren't necessarily going so right within like the annual garden, it's very comforting to see these things still super lush and looking after themselves in a way and just producing without you breaking your back to do it. So it can sometimes feel like this lovely, I guess, reminder just of that really, and just that there is still food coming out the garden.
And we've certainly had that this year. This
exactly.
has been a very difficult year for many growers, gardeners, farmers around the country. 2021 has been a challenging year, and even for the fruit trees, looking at them, there's not as many apples or plums on the trees, but they are still growing strong.
Would really like to think about even now we've got these quite well established tree rows, although we've got new ones that we're wanting to establish as well, really bordering all of the plots in the market garden. We also do want to bring into some of the plots themselves some perennial vegetable beds as well, just again with the thinking of that complement between the needs of both types of growing. We're excited about that next stage and seeing how that might integrate with a CSA box as well.
I think from an ecological design point of view, the concept of succession and an evolving system is something that we're always trying to think about here when planning our design. In 2016, yes, we were building a market garden that was focusing heavily on annual production of vegetables. But we always had this idea in the back of our minds that that might not always be the case, that one day this field that we've made raised beds in and brought in compost and is now a brilliant sun trap and, you know, protected by the wind and perfect for growing annuals, one day we might like to transition to a more perennial based system, and of course we are on the way to that. And you've got to have that idea in your head years back when you get a piece of land and look at nature as a model and see how a field will turn into a forest in our climate, certainly, given time and given the right climate. And that's how we've been designing this place, is that we're looking currently, we have a market garden, but by putting in those rows of perennials, we know that if we want to, we can fill in the vegetable plots with more perennials if we want to accelerate succession and speed up the process to a forest-based agriculture. It's a great feeling when we get people who come on a tour, especially if they've maybe got their own projects, whether that's a bit of a pipe dream, whether they've actually got themselves a bit of land. What's really great is giving them some examples and the inspiration to go back to their own projects. Yeah, whether that's a back garden or a croft, a large farm, and take something away from what we've been doing here, our mistakes.
Yeah, I was going to say, the learning from our mistakes, because we try loads of different things and some don't go so well, but that's really valuable to try and pass that on just as much as the stuff that does go well, you know. So that's been really nice. And
Yeah.
that's been something that's in recent, like the past couple of years, there do seem to be more and more quite local people cropping up, you know, that suddenly have found us, and it's very nice to realise that I think we've inspired them to make a little bit of a new direction and try out a new way of living. There was a couple that found us just earlier this year, and they ended up coming on a tour, and they really had just discovered us almost by accident, but that took them on a journey. They went from reasonably unassociated jobs, as it was, to actually deciding to start a market garden and trying to learn a bit more about living off the land. And it was just lovely to see the kind of joy in this like discovery of something, and just suddenly all these little fireworks going off in their head as they walked around and saw this way of living that with their young family and things that they really saw as a kind of potential way of life.
We want to be part of the permaculture movement in the UK. It's something that we're very passionate about, and so it's nice to be part of the solution.
Recently, as people just saying like, oh, I've just felt now I have that confidence to take that step because we've had a chat about something, or they've come here and seen that, you know, certain things that they might have not felt too confident to really like jump into seem a little bit more possible, which is just all you can ask for, to like try and just start like push people a little bit, and then yeah, they start that journey.